I'm not going to sit here and say that's lost today on music or anything because there's some amazing music being done today, but I just think about that stuff often. What made these old records come across the way they did? And I think stuff like this is a bigger part of it than people think. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Lone University. Sadly, today, I have to apologize to all of you sincerely. In a previous video, I remarked that Steve Harris was the godfather of heavy metal bass playing. Today, I'm excited to put the spotlight on, in my opinion, the godfather of heavy metal bass playing, Mr. Steve Harris. I'm super ashamed of my comments and my actions, and I hope that you will forgive me. I just wanted to have a little bit of fun with that because I did say that in a previous video, but nonetheless, we're going to be checking out War Pigs today, featuring Geezer's amazing playing. There's a lot of things I want to talk about with it. This is from their 1970 album, Paranoid, featuring some of the band's most signature tracks, Iron Man, War Pigs, and the aptly titled track, Paranoid. Let's jump in. Triplet sort of feel, 12/8. Something to notice already, I love that sort of push and pull that Geezer and Bill Ward, drummer, have. Some of the hits are a little off. Geezer will push the downbeat a little bit. Bill Ward will push the accent or hold back and lay on the backside of the beat. You don't find character like that in modern records. And I don't want to sound like an old guy because I'm not an old guy. I'm 33. But that stuff is what added so much personality and character to these classic metal records. They let a lot of stuff go, but again, it's that lively feel that makes these tracks so special. I really like it. You can kind of hear it in this intro, some of those downbeats. Just a little flam there. I love that stuff. We're in a 12/8 feel here, triplet. I love that Geezer is alternating between going right with the 3 patterns. Then he switches to kind of a 2 pattern, pushing that 2 against 3. Really cool stuff. I just love the feel because the rest of the song kind of abandons that swung feel mostly. 2. 1, 2, 1. I've always loved the dynamics of this part.
Generals gathered in their masses.
Always an amazing Ozzy performance.
Like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction. Sorcerer of death's construction.
I love how the cymbal decay is so long.
In the fields of bodies burning.
Just lively.
As the war machine keeps turning.
Nowadays drums are so gated and just cymbal crashers just
poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh Lord, yeah.
So many good variations in the bass parts. I've never seen this song played live. Curious if Geezer's one of those players who tries to recreate the fills live similar to the record, or if every performance is truly just a unique ad-libbed variation of the original, it says a whole lot about him as a player. It's really cool because some players will try to recreate those fills exactly. Everything from the drummers do this, bass players as well. There's a little bit more freedom in those parts. I've always wondered that because every fill he plays is sort of different. That's what makes learning some of his lines a challenge to get every nuance correct, because it's really not a lot of repetition in the bass part throughout the song. All that little goodness in there.
Politicians hide themselves away. They only started the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave their
Love his ability to kind of stray away from the riff just enough to where he can add in some little extra movement. You know, this riff is already sort of driving, and he's playing the guitar riff in unison exactly, but he's adding more on top of that, which gives it that little extra bit of motion that kind of drives this part. Because we started the song off kind of slow, sludgy, kind of just weighty, and now it's kind of this more driving thing, a clear tempo change when the vocals start and that whole next section starts. This kind of stuff was really pioneering for later bass players to kind of take a riff and add to it without compromising the initial harmonic integrity of the riff. You know, he adds those little guitar parts still going, and then he's going, landing and starting on the crucial accent points, but just adding a little bit of flair to it. Really influential stuff that you can just hear all bass players were influenced by that kind of stuff to even today. I also love this kind of vintage, very signature wooden sound. His tone sounds very wooden to me. It's got this kind of thwack to it. I've read that he's kind of playing over the neck a bit more. I'm not sure if this is true. I'm not super well versed in anything other than just hearing his music. I just love that the character on the high end of his tone. It's got this wooden, it's got top end, but it's not like the top end we think of now. So I'm curious to know what he used on recording this stuff, because it's such a really exquisite tone for its time. Let's keep going.
out to the bar. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Time will tell on their power lines. Making war just for fun. Treating people just like pawns and
So much subtle variation.
wait till the judgment day comes. Yeah.
That's a favorite fill of mine there. He brings that swing feeling back. You know, we've transitioned out of that kind of 12/8, 1-2-3, 1-2-3. Now it's more driving, but he still adds that kind of. Love that. It might not be quite that swung, but it has enough in there to kind of nod back to that original feel. Really hitting the octaves. It's all over the place. This is the Geezer magic here, where when Tony goes off and does a solo, Geezer almost takes another solo. And the way he did it is so intelligent. There's a million things he could have played that wouldn't have sounded good, especially with that much movement in the bass part, but this is supporting the solo. This is a classic case where the most interesting bass parts that happen are when your ear is pulled in a different direction by, say, a guitar solo. You know, Rush was really known for kind of doing this. You know, the coolest bass parts from Geddy were under an Alex solo. This is kind of where that influence started. And right here, Tony is straying away, doing the solo, and Geezer's just going wide open in another direction. And, you know, as a bass player growing up, I was always told when someone else is in the spotlight, take a step back and let them have the spotlight. That is not the case here. But what I've come to learn later is that that's not really how you should always approach it. You can step out and be more in the spotlight when someone else is. You just have to do it in the right way. The key is to push the boundary just a little bit in a way that supports the solo and doesn't detract from it. Very hard to do, and it's very case by case basis, depending on what the composition is and all that type of thing. But this is sort of a masterclass on how that's done. And if you do it the right way, it can elevate the solo. It can elevate the role of the person in the spotlight. Really crucial stuff here. Just all kind of goodness. Love it. That's the kind of stuff I wonder. Does he play it the same way every time, or is it really just kind of ad-libbed free for all each time? It would be really cool either way. I really think so. On those octaves now. Kind of bringing back those fills from earlier. That little last fill there was reminiscent of the very beginning of the song. Pretty cool.
Now in darkness, world stops turning. Ashes where the body's burning.
This is like perfect songwriting dynamics.
No more war,
The way they bring it back down to this point.
And as God has struck the hour, day of judgment, God is calling. Underneath the war pigs crawling, begging mercies for the sins.
So great.
Satan laughing spreads his wings. Oh Lord, yeah.
It's one of my favorite fills in this song. Going to that E7 kind of sound here. I'm going to try to stop playing along with it. I think this is slightly lower, older recordings, or if they were a band that, intentionally recorded away from 440, I'm not sure, but I can tell I'm a little off, and I did just tune. Something to point out here. Geezer has went all over the fretboard so far in this song. This is a pretty open spot with no vocals. The guitar part is pretty static. If there were a chance for him to go all over and really rip some bass licks, this is the spot in the song that would have made the most sense. But when I think about it more, taking away some of that ad-libbing, crazy, tasty stuff almost makes when it comes back more impactful. And this part is clearly building to that really epic melodic outro that's coming up. And he opens it back up then, but I love the conscious restraint here to just stick on the octaves, let that guitar part be front and center, take away what you're used to hearing from him, showing some restraint, and then when it opens back up, it has a completely different context. I think that was, in my opinion, I think that's a conscious move here because this is a really open part that would have called for something like he was doing earlier. His bass playing was more movement. It had more movement when a guitar solo was happening. It has less movement in this spot. Why is that? That's the kind of stuff I think about when listening to songs. It's always fun to go back and go, why? Why was this done here? Why was this done there? And it's fun to think about some of the conscious choices that might have been made creatively. I think this is one of those parts here. So if we go back and kind of see. He could have went everywhere here. But he's sticking on the really interesting stuff. Love this melody. See, it's opening back up now. He clearly stopped that consciously, because previously in the song he was playing this way and he stopped for this part. Now it's opening back up. This riff is so anthemic. So anthemic, and the openness of the entire vibe, it just brings back his playing that's kind of all over the place. You'll hear that the bass is back to doing its all over the scale, really playing around with the different chord tones, the progression, because it's kind of in D now, back to E, back to D. That's almost a unison lick. Coming back to the head. He could have easily been completely unison with that line. But he's back to doing. Man, it just adds such a movement to this song, which has a kind of a slow mid-tempo pace. And I think it feels faster than it is because of the way the bass part's moving around. And then when he goes up under, he catches like the first couple bars of a Tony Iommi solo and kind of mimics the vibe of him before straying away for his own sort of little lead. It's just very interesting writing, especially for this time in the 70s, which maybe that was completely appropriate for the time. But just it takes on a whole new meaning today, thinking back about the legacy this band had on every musician respectively. You know, the influence Tony's had on guitar players, Geezer's had on bass players. I would argue Bill Ward as well, of course. And then, of course, you know, Ozzy needs no introduction. It's just really interesting to put this stuff under the microscope in a context of time and eras. Hear how that hit was a little off? Listen to when that hit comes in, the break and then the bump, bump. They were a little off. There's a little bit of a flam there. Guys, that stuff adds characters to records. You know, it's the industry standard nowadays maybe to fix stuff like that or re-record it. You know, this luxury wasn't as simple back then for obvious reasons, but that is, it makes these old records feel like you're there listening in real time. And I'm not going to sit here and say that's lost today on music or anything, because there's some amazing music being done today, but I just think about that stuff often. You know, what made these old records come across the way they did? And I think stuff like this is a bigger part of it than people think. Well, this was fun to revisit a classic song with some amazing bass playing. You know, Geezer, as I said in the beginning of the video, is the godfather of metal bass playing. You know, when you listen to the way he played, you can hear it in all of his descendants in the metal scene, in the rock scene. And his style of playing had a blues and jazz flair to it a lot, which, you know, I think the legacy Black Sabbath left transcended genre lines, of course. What a classic song. I know I'm doing a lot of newer, smaller bands a lot in this channel, but I always want to focus and pay respect to the ones that started it all. So I'm going to try to mix it up and do a good balance of both, but I also want to focus on these newer bands, newer projects, and because there's a lot I haven't heard, and some of the bass playing out there today is just out of this world. So I appreciate your requests as always. Keep them coming. Please like this video and give it a thumbs up, and please make sure you're subscribed. I saw something that like 7% of my viewers are subscribers, so hit that subscribe button. We're having a lot of fun over here, and I appreciate you being on board. Thanks for watching. Cheers. We'll see you next time.